The night sky above Havenwood was a canvas so profound, it humbled the soul. Here, nestled deep in the forgotten valleys where city lights dared not trespass, the stars weren't just pinpricks of light. They were a shimmering ocean, a cosmic dust cloud, so dense and bright it felt as if you could reach out and pluck a handful of diamonds from the inky black. This was Alara Vance's world, and she loved it with a fierce, quiet devotion. Her observatory, affectionately dubbed the Stellar Hearth by her late, equally star-struck grandfather, was a modest dome perched atop the highest hill just outside town. It wasn't grand or state-of-the-art, but its ancient, well-loved telescope had seen more wonders than most people could dream of. Alara, with her perpetually star-dusted hair and eyes that held the quiet intensity of distant galaxies, spent most of her nights here, guiding small groups through the constellations, or simply losing herself in the silent majesty of nebulae and far-off galaxies. Lately, though, the hearth felt less like a sanctuary and more like a burden. The roof leaked during the spring rains, the heating system groaned with an alarming regularity, and the tiny trickle of income from her stargazing tours barely covered the maintenance, let alone her own sparse living expenses. Havenwood, for all its celestial beauty, wasn't exactly a bustling tourist destination. Most people preferred the glow of their screens to the humbling dark of the universe. Alara sighed, running a hand over the cool metal of the telescope's base. It wasn't just the observatory's future that felt precarious, it was her own. She was 34, unmarried, and her closest companions were the distant pulsars she charted. A lonely life perhaps, but one filled with an unparalleled sense of wonder. Tonight, however, promised a rare treat, a meteor shower, a particularly vibrant one, according to her calculations. She'd put out flyers in the general store and the local diner, hoping to attract a few more visitors than usual. As the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples before surrendering to the deep indigo, Alara began her preparations, a comforting ritual she'd performed countless times. Yet, Rhys Calen had arrived in Havenwood 3 days prior, driven by a gnawing emptiness he couldn't quite articulate. He was an architect, a successful one, the kind who designed gleaming skyscrapers and innovative urban spaces. But lately, the steel and glass felt cold, the endless meetings hollow. He'd come to Havenwood seeking quiet, a blank slate, hoping to reignite the spark that had once made him sketch with feverish abandon. His design competition entry, a pivotal project for his career, was due in a month, and his mind was stubbornly blank. The rented cabin he'd found on the outskirts of Havenwood was charmingly rustic, if a little too remote. No Wi-Fi, spotty cell service, and the nearest decent coffee was a 20-minute drive. He missed the hum of the city, the late-night diners, the anonymous bustle. But the quiet here was absolute, a heavy blanket that smothered the incessant chatter of his own thoughts. And the darkness was something else entirely. On his first night, stepping out onto the porch with a lukewarm cup of instant coffee, he'd actually gasped. He'd seen stars before, of course, but never like this. They obliterated the sky, a glittering tapestry so vast it made his head spin. It was beautiful, yes, but also a little overwhelming, a stark reminder of his own insignificance. He hadn't looked up again since, choosing instead to focus on the cabin's dusty floorboards or the frustrating blankness of his sketchbook. Tonight, restlessness gnawed at him. The architect's block was stubbornly persistent. He paced the small cabin, tried to read, tried to meditate. Nothing worked. He remembered seeing a faded flyer pinned to the general store bulletin board, advertising stargazing tours at the Stellar Hearth. He'd scoffed then. Stars. What good were stars when your career felt like it was crumbling? But the persistent, aching quiet of the cabin finally drove him out. He grabbed his jacket, his phone, useless for calls, but a good flashlight, and a vague sense of desperation. Maybe a walk would clear his head. He remembered the directions to the observatory, a winding gravel road leading up a hill. The darkness was profound, the only light, the distant, faint glow of Havenwood. He almost turned back a dozen times. This was insane. What was he hoping to find in the cold, vast emptiness above? As he rounded the final bend, a soft, warm glow appeared on the hilltop. It wasn't bright, just a gentle illumination around a small dome-shaped building. A few cars were already parked, their engines silent. He hesitated, then pushed open the creaky wooden gate. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. A handful of people, bundled in jackets, stood around, murmuring excitedly. In the center of the small gathering, silhouetted against the nascent glow of the Milky Way, was a woman. She was focused on adjusting a large telescope, her movements precise and practiced. Elara felt the subtle shift in the energy of the group, a new arrival. She didn't look up immediately, her attention on aligning the telescope for the approaching meteor shower. "Welcome, everyone," she called out, her voice clear and carrying. "The show's just about to begin. If you'll just gather around, I'll give you a quick orientation." Rhys found himself drifting to the back of the small crowd, content to observe. He watched her. She was slender, dressed practically in sturdy jeans and a thick fleece jacket, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail that seemed to escape in wisps around her face. She turned, and the soft glow of a red-filtered lamp illuminated her features. Her eyes, he noticed, were a startling shade of green, and they sparkled with an almost incandescent enthusiasm. "Tonight," Elara began, gesturing expansively at the darkening sky, "we are incredibly fortunate. The Perseids are putting on quite the display. These aren't just random streaks of light. They're tiny pieces of a comet, Swift-Tuttle, burning up as they enter our atmosphere. A cosmic greeting, if you will, from beyond our world." She spoke with a gentle reverence, her words painting vivid pictures. She pointed out constellations, told stories of ancient myths, and explained the science behind the shimmering gas clouds in distant galaxies. Rhys, usually impatient with lectures, found himself unexpectedly captivated. It wasn't just the information, it was the way she spoke. Her passion so genuine and infectious. She made the vast, intimidating cosmos feel intimate, almost friendly. "And now," she said, finally turning to the telescope, "for a closer look at something truly spectacular. Tonight, we're going to visit the Ring Nebula. It's a planetary nebula, the beautiful remnant of a dying star, shedding its outer layers into space, a stellar farewell, creating a breathtaking cosmic jewel." One by one, the small group took turns peering through the eyepiece. Rhys, still lingering at the back, felt a strange pull. He'd never considered himself interested in astronomy, but her words had stirred a dormant curiosity. When it was finally his turn, he approached hesitantly. Elara stepped aside, a small smile on her face. "Just lean in gently. You might need a moment for your eyes to adjust." Rhys bent down, pressing his eye to the cool metal. At first he saw only a blurry circle, then slowly, as his vision adjusted, the universe unfolded. A luminous, ghostly ring, vibrant with shades of green and blue, floated in the velvety blackness. It was breathtaking, ethereal, and utterly unlike anything he had ever witnessed. It felt ancient, vast, and yet profoundly beautiful, a silent testament to creation and destruction on a scale he couldn't comprehend. For a long moment, he forgot about his deadlines, his career, his restless mind. There was only the Ring Nebula and the profound silence of space. When he finally straightened up, a quiet awe settled over him. "It's incredible," he managed, his voice a little hoarse. He turned to Elara, and for the first time, their eyes met properly. Her green eyes, framed by the red lamplight, held a knowing warmth, reflecting the very wonder he felt. "Isn't it?" she replied, her voice soft, a hint of genuine pleasure in her tone. "It always is." The meteor shower began in earnest then, a glorious cascade of shooting stars streaking across the sky, eliciting gasps and murmurs of delight from the group. Elara pointed out the radiant point, explained why some were brighter than others, and encouraged everyone to simply lie back on the blankets she'd provided and immerse themselves in the spectacle. Rhys found an empty spot on a blanket, leaning back and letting the cosmic show wash over him. Each streak of light was a fleeting miracle, a whisper from the edge of time. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in months, a quiet contentment that settled deep in his chest. He stole glances at Elara, who stood a little apart, her face uplifted, watching the sky with an almost childlike wonder. She wasn't just observing, she was communing. As the shower began to wane, and the first hints of pre-dawn light threatened to dilute the stars, the group began to disperse, exchanging grateful goodbyes with Ilara. Rhys, however, found himself lingering. He felt a strange reluctance to leave, to return to the quiet cabin and the blank pages of his sketchbook. "Thank you," he said, approaching Ilara as she began to pack away some smaller instruments. "That was truly special." She turned, a tired but happy smile on her face. "You're very welcome. It's always a privilege to share a night like this." She paused, her gaze thoughtful. "You're new to Havenwood, aren't you? I haven't seen you at the hearth before." "Rhys Calen," he offered, extending a hand. "Yes, I just arrived a few days ago. I'm staying in one of the cabins just outside town. Needed a change of scenery." He didn't elaborate on the architect's block, the burnout, the feeling of being utterly lost. It felt too raw, too personal for a first encounter. "Ilara Vance," she replied, her hand firm and warm in his. "Welcome to Havenwood, Rhys. I hope the change of scenery is proving beneficial." Her eyes held a flicker of understanding, as if she sensed there was more to his presence than just a casual visit. "It's certainly different," he admitted, a small smile playing on his lips. "I've never seen stars like this before. It's overwhelming, in the best way." He gestured vaguely at the sky. "You have a remarkable way of explaining it all. You make it feel accessible." Ilara chuckled softly. "That's the goal. The universe can seem daunting, but it's also our home, our origin. There's a profound comfort in understanding our place within it." She hesitated, then added, "So, what brings an architect to our little corner of the cosmos?" He was surprised she'd guessed his profession. "How did you know?" "A keen eye for detail," she said, her smile widening. "You were sketching in a notebook when you first arrived, and then again while waiting your turn at the telescope. Most people are too distracted by the sky to notice." Rhys felt a blush creep up his neck. He hadn't realized she'd been observing him. "Ah, yes. I'm trying to work on a design competition. Find some inspiration in the quiet, I suppose." He felt a sudden urge to confide in her, to tell her about the creative drought, the feeling of pressure, but held back. "It's a big change from city life." "I can imagine," she said, a hint of wistfulness in her tone. "I've only ever visited a city a handful of times. Too much light pollution for my liking." She gestured to the dome. "This is my legacy, my home. My grandfather built it." Her gaze softened as she looked at the old observatory. "I try to keep it going, keep his dream alive." "It's a wonderful dream," Rhys said genuinely. He could see the love and dedication in her eyes. "It must be hard, running something like this, so far out." A shadow crossed her face, fleeting but noticeable. "It has its challenges, but the rewards are immeasurable." She looked up at the sky, now paling to a soft lavender. "The sun will be up soon. The stars are retreating for another day." He realized how late it was, how long it stayed. "Right. Well, thank you again, Ilara. I think I might have found some of that inspiration I was looking for tonight." He gestured vaguely to the fading sky, then to her. She met his gaze, a quiet curiosity in her eyes. "I'm glad. If you ever want to come back, the hearth is always open. I often have impromptu sessions if the sky is clear and I'm not too bogged down with paperwork." Her smile was a little wry. "I'd like that," he said, meaning it. More than he'd expected. He found himself wanting to know more about this woman who spoke of dying stars and cosmic greetings with such passion. He wanted to hear her voice again, to see the way her eyes lit up under the red lamp. He walked back to his cabin under a sky that was rapidly brightening, painting the eastern horizon in hues of rose and gold. The air was colder now, but he felt a warmth spreading through him. He glanced at his sketchbook, still stubbornly blank on his desk. But this time when he looked at it, he saw not emptiness, but possibility. He saw the swirling shapes of the Ring Nebula, the fleeting streaks of meteors, and the quiet, intense gaze of Ilara Vance. For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of an idea, a nascent spark of creativity. It wasn't about steel and glass anymore. It was about light and shadow, about connection and vastness. It was about the space between. The next few days settled into a rhythm. Rhys sketched, truly sketched, for the first time in weeks. He found himself drawing abstract forms inspired by nebulae, playing with light and dark, volume and void. The The competition brief, which had felt so restrictive, now seemed like an open invitation. He even tried to capture the feeling of the night sky, its overwhelming beauty in charcoal and graphite. But his mind kept drifting back to Alara. To her voice, the way her hair caught the starlight, the quiet passion in her eyes. He wondered what she was doing, what cosmic wonders she was observing. He found himself looking up at the night sky from his porch, trying to identify the constellations she had pointed out, feeling a strange sense of companionship with the distant stars. On the fourth evening, unable to resist the pull any longer, Rhys found himself walking back up the gravel path to the stellar hearth. He told himself it was for research, for inspiration. He wanted to learn more about the cosmos to inform his designs. But deep down, he knew it was a flimsy excuse. He wanted to see her. He found her alone, hunched over a laptop in the small, cluttered office area adjacent to the observatory dome. Papers were stacked high, and the soft glow of the screen illuminated her worried frown. She looked up, startled, as he knocked softly on the open doorframe. "Rhys," she said, a flicker of surprise, then a small smile touching her lips. "I wasn't expecting you." "I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said, feeling a little awkward now that he was here. I was wondering if you had any materials about the, different types of nebulae for my project." He felt a pang of guilt at the half-truth. Alara pushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "Oh, come in. I have plenty of books and some old star charts, though I was just wrestling with some rather terrestrial concerns myself." She gestured vaguely at the laptop screen, which showed a spreadsheet full of red numbers. "Everything all right?" he asked, stepping into the small, cozy room. It smelled faintly of old paper, dust, and something indefinably starchy, like old wool blankets. She sighed, a weary sound. "Just the usual. The hearth needs a new filter for the main telescope, and the roof really does need patching before winter. It's an endless battle between cosmic wonders and very earthly finances." She managed a small, brave smile. "But enough about that. What kind of nebulae are you interested in?" He felt a genuine pang of sympathy. "Well, the Ring Nebula was captivating. But I was also thinking, the birth of stars. The vast clouds of gas and dust. Anything that speaks to creation, to new beginnings." He met her gaze, a silent acknowledgement of his own search for new beginnings. Her eyes lit up. "Ah, stellar nurseries, emission nebulae, reflection nebulae, gorgeous, chaotic, teeming with nascent light. I have just the thing." She turned to a towering bookshelf, pulling down a thick, well-worn book and a few laminated star charts. "Here, sit." She cleared a space on a small, rickety table, moving aside a half-empty mug and a stack of observation logs. Rhys sat, feeling a strange sense of comfort in the small, cluttered room. Alara began to explain, her voice soft but animated, pointing to diagrams and images. She showed him pictures of the pillars of creation in the Eagle Nebula, the Horsehead Nebula, the Orion Nebula, each one a breathtaking work of cosmic art. She spoke of the forces at play, the unimaginable scale, the delicate balance of gravity and light. He listened, utterly absorbed. He wasn't just learning about nebulae, he was learning about her. He watched the way her hands moved as she described the swirling gases, the way her eyes gleamed when she spoke of a star being born. He realized that her passion wasn't just intellectual, it was deeply emotional, almost spiritual. "It's beautiful," he said, turning a page to reveal a particularly vibrant image of a star-forming region. "It makes you feel small, but also part of something so much bigger." "Exactly," she agreed, her gaze meeting his. "That's why I do it, to remind people of that connection, to offer a little perspective." She leaned back, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You know, my grandfather always said that the stars aren't just out there, they're in us. We're all made of stardust after all. And the space between our stars, the darkness, is just as important as the light. It's where everything begins. It's where everything begins." Rhys felt a jolt, a sudden profound resonance with her words. "The space between our stars," he repeated softly. It wasn't just a cosmic concept. It felt like a metaphor for his own life, for the emptiness he'd been feeling, the quiet between the noise. and perhaps for the space that was now forming, gently and tentatively, between them. He looked at her, truly looked at her. Her face, usually serious, was softened by the lamp's glow. There was a smudge of what might have been grease on her cheek, and her hair was a charming mess. She was utterly genuine, utterly herself. And in that moment, under the silent gaze of the distant stars filtering through the dome, he felt a connection deeper than mere curiosity. He felt a burgeoning warmth, a quiet pull, like gravity, drawing him closer. "Elara," he began, then hesitated, unsure how to articulate the sudden rush of feeling. "Thank you for sharing this, for sharing your world." She smiled, a genuine open smile that reached her eyes. "My pleasure, Reese. It's not often I find someone who truly listens, who truly sees." Her gaze held his, and for a long moment, the world outside the small office, the financial woes, the architectural deadlines, faded away. There was only the quiet hum of the universe, and the silent, nascent understanding between them. A sudden, soft ping from her laptop broke the spell. She glanced at the screen, and her smile faltered slightly. "Ah, another bill. The real world, unfortunately, always intrudes." "Is there anything I can do to help?" he asked impulsively, the words out before he could second-guess them. He was an architect, a problem solver. Maybe there was something. She looked surprised, then shook her head gently. "That's kind of you, but it's just the usual juggling act. This place isn't exactly a money spinner." She pushed the laptop aside. "But enough about that. The sky is clearing beautifully tonight. Would you like to see something else through the telescope? Perhaps Jupiter's moons, or a globular cluster?" Her green eyes held a hopeful invitation. Reese didn't hesitate. "I'd love to." He wanted to see more. More stars, more wonders. And more of her. He felt a shift within him, a quiet knowing. His search for inspiration had led him not just to the stars, but to the woman who held them in her gaze. And he had a feeling, a very strong feeling, that his journey had only just begun. The cool night air, once a crisp backdrop, now felt charged with a different kind of energy. Reese leaned back, letting the warmth of Lyra's presence seep into him as she adjusted the telescope. He watched the subtle flecks of her fingers, the way a stray curl escaped her bun and danced near her cheek. Even in the dim light, he noticed a faint dusting of freckles across her nose. "All right," she murmured, stepping aside. "Jupiter and its 4 largest moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto, the Galilean moons named after the man who first observed them in 1610, forever changing our understanding of the solar system." Her voice, a melodic whisper, made the scientific facts feel like poetry. Reese bent to the eyepiece, and there it was, a magnificent, striped orb, a swirling marble of orange and cream, flanked by 4 tiny, perfect pinpricks of light. They weren't static stars. They were distinct, orbiting bodies, a miniature solar system in motion. He felt a profound sense of awe, a humbling reminder of the universe's endless complexity and beauty. "Incredible," he breathed, straightening up. "It's one thing to see pictures, another entirely to witness it yourself." Lyra smiled, a soft, genuine curve of her lips that reached her eyes. "That's the magic of it, isn't it? Being a direct witness, knowing that light has traveled millions of miles just to touch your retina." "It's more than magic," Reese countered, meeting her gaze. "It's a connection to something vast, something ancient, and in a strange way, it makes you feel less alone." He paused, then added, "Especially when you're sharing it." A blush bloomed on Lyra's cheeks, a delicate splash of color in the moonlight. She ducked her head slightly, her gaze drifting back to the telescope. "Shall we try for a globular cluster then? Messier 13 in Hercules is particularly stunning tonight." They spent another hour under the canvas of 1 billion stars, Lyra expertly navigating the celestial sphere, Reese utterly captivated by each new revelation. He saw the shimmering haze of a distant galaxy, the ethereal glow of a nebula, the dense, sparkling jewel box of Messier 13, a swarm of hundreds of thousands of stars bound by gravity, appearing like a cosmic snowball. Each sight was a brushstroke on the canvas of his soul, filling him with a sense of wonder he hadn't felt in years. He realized with a quiet certainty that this wasn't just about finding architectural inspiration anymore. This was about rediscovering a part of himself he hadn't known was missing. The air grew sharper, carrying a bite that hinted at the approaching dawn, though the true darkness of night still held sway. Lyra shivered slightly, pulling her arms around herself. "It's getting quite cold," she observed, her breath misting in the air. "Perhaps we should head inside? I could make us some hot chocolate. Real hot chocolate with actual melted chocolate, not powder." Reese's stomach rumbled, a gentle reminder that he hadn't eaten since an early dinner. "That sounds like heaven," he said, a genuine warmth spreading through him. "Lead the way." As Lyra began to pack away the telescope, moving with an efficient grace, Reese lingered for a moment, taking one last look at the heavens. The stars seemed brighter, closer, imbued with a new significance. He felt a quiet hum of contentment, a sense of rightness that settled deep in his bones. Inside the dome, Lyra flipped a switch, and a soft, warm light bathed the space. The air was noticeably warmer, filled with the faint, comforting scent of old books and something faintly metallic. Reese took in his surroundings properly for the first time. The room wasn't just a telescope housing. It was a small, circular living space. A comfortable armchair sat next to a cluttered desk piled with astronomy books and star charts. A small kitchenette was tucked into one corner, and a narrow spiral staircase led up to what he assumed was a sleeping loft. It was lived in, cozy, and utterly charming. "Make yourself comfortable," Lyra offered, gesturing vaguely towards the armchair as she headed for the kitchenette. "It's a bit rustic up here, but it's home." Reese settled into the armchair, sinking into its worn cushions. "Rustic is an understatement," he chuckled. "It's magnificent. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's incredibly personal." Lyra smiled over her shoulder as she retrieved a saucepan and a bar of dark chocolate. "It has to be when you spend so much time here. Every object tells a story, usually one involving a very stubborn delivery driver or a forgotten essential." She began to chop the chocolate with practiced ease. "So, Reese, you mentioned you're an architect. What brings an architect to a remote observatory in the middle of nowhere?" Reese leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "A bit of an existential crisis, if I'm honest," he admitted, a wry smile playing on his lips. "I've been designing these grand, modern buildings, all glass and steel, reaching for the sky. But lately, it's felt hollow, like I'm missing something essential, something foundational. I started looking for inspiration outside the urban landscape, something truly vast and timeless." He gestured vaguely upwards. "And here I am." Lyra paused, the knife resting on the cutting board. She turned to face him fully, her green eyes thoughtful. "Hollow, you said? That's a powerful word for someone who creates such tangible things." "It is," he agreed, his gaze steady. "I've built a successful career, but I felt like I was losing the why, the wonder, the connection to something bigger than myself. The stars, the universe, they're the ultimate architecture, aren't they? Perfect design on an incomprehensible scale." Lyra nodded slowly, her expression softening. "They are, and they're constant, unchanging, yet always revealing new secrets. I understand that feeling, the need for why. It's what drives most scientists, I think, to understand the fundamental laws, to peel back the layers of the unknown." She turned back to the chocolate, stirring it into warm milk. The rich, sweet aroma began to fill the small space. "What about you, Lyra?" Reese asked, his voice gentle. "What drew you to the stars? Was it always this remote observatory?" She stirred for a moment longer, then poured the thick, dark liquid into 2 mugs. "Here," she said, handing him one. The warmth seeped into his hands, comforting and real. She sat on a stool opposite him, tucking her legs beneath her. "It started young, I suppose," she began, taking a sip of her hot chocolate, a faint chocolate mustache forming on her upper lip, which she quickly wiped away with the back of her hand. "My grandfather, he wasn't a scientist, just a man who loved to look up. He had a small, old refractor telescope, nothing fancy, but he taught me the constellations. Taught me to find Polaris, to trace the Milky Way. He made it feel like a secret language, a cosmic treasure hunt." Her eyes grew distant, a fond smile playing on her lips. "He passed away when I was 12, and for a while the stars felt too painful to look at. like a reminder of what I'd lost. Reese listened, captivated by the quiet vulnerability in her voice. But you came back to them. I did, she confirmed, her gaze returning to him steady and clear. When I was a teenager, I found myself drawn to science fiction, stories of exploration, of venturing into the unknown. It rekindled that spark. I realized that the stars weren't just a reminder of loss. They were a promise of endless discovery, a way to feel connected to something boundless, something that transcended even death. She took another sip. I studied astrophysics, worked at larger observatories, but I always felt a pull to a place like this. A place where the light pollution is minimal, where the sky is truly dark, where it's just me and the universe. And no one else? Reese asked, his voice low. Lyra met his gaze, and for a moment, the air between them thickened with unspoken meaning. Mostly no one else, she admitted softly. It's peaceful, demanding, but peaceful, and I get to be a witness every night to the greatest show on Earth, or rather, above it. Reese felt a profound sense of connection to her words. Her search for wonder, for connection, for meaning, mirrored his own. They were two different paths leading to a similar hunger for the sublime. Quiet intimacy of the moment, the shared warmth of the mugs, the soft glow of the lamp, all conspired to deepen the bond that had begun under the vast, silent sky. It sounds like a solitary life, Reese observed gently, not as a judgment, but as an offering. Lyra shrugged lightly. It can be, but the universe is a pretty good companion, and there are moments like this. Her eyes flickered to his, then away, a faint flush coloring her cheeks again. Moments when you get to share the wonder. They talked for what felt like hours, the conversation flowing easily between them. They discussed everything from the philosophical implications of quantum mechanics to the practicalities of living off-grid, from the beauty of ancient Roman architecture to the challenges of funding scientific research. Reese found himself utterly charmed by her quick wit, her passionate explanations, and the genuine enthusiasm that lit up her face when she spoke of her work. He realized she wasn't just brilliant, she was deeply, wonderfully human. Eventually, a yawn escaped Lyra, and she stretched, arching her back gracefully. Goodness, it's almost dawn. The sky will be lightening soon. Reese checked his watch. 4:30 in the morning. He hadn't noticed the time passing. I should probably get back to the lodge, he said, a pang of reluctance settling in his chest. The thought of leaving this cozy, star-filled haven, and the woman who inhabited it, felt strangely jarring. Lyra stood up, gathering the empty mugs. You're welcome to stay for coffee if you like. I have a proper French press, and I can make some toast. The offer was simple, domestic, and utterly appealing. I'd like that very much, Reese said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. The sun began to peek over the distant mountain peaks as they sat at the small, round table in the observatory dome, sipping strong coffee and eating toast with homemade raspberry jam. The world outside, transformed from inky black to shades of rose and gold, painting the sky with an entirely different kind of beauty. So, Lyra said, her voice a little softer in the morning light, are you staying another night in the lodge? Reese paused, swirling his coffee. He had originally planned to leave that morning to head further north. But the thought of leaving, now, felt impossible. I hadn't planned to, he admitted. But after last night, I feel like I've only just scratched the surface. Of the stars, I mean. He met her gaze, a silent question in his eyes. I'd love to see more. Perhaps some of the things that aren't visible from the city. Lyra's face lit up, a genuine warmth radiating from her. There's always more to see, and the sky changes with the seasons, of course. Tonight, we could try for some deeper sky objects or perhaps a closer look at the moon if the seeing is good. She hesitated, then added, and there's the solar telescope too. We could look at the sun's surface, its flares and sunspots during the day. It's quite incredible. The solar telescope? Reese's architect's brain immediately latched onto the idea of observing something so powerful and dynamic. That sounds fascinating. I'd be very interested in that. A comfortable silence settled between them, filled with the clinking of mugs and the gentle chirping of unseen birds outside. Reese felt a profound sense of peace. He had come searching for inspiration, and he had found something far more profound. He had found connection. He pushed back his chair. Well, I should probably go check out of my room at the lodge, then rebook it for another night, and perhaps get some proper sleep before tonight's celestial adventures. Lyra walked him to the dome's entrance. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. "Thank you for coming up, Reese," she said, her voice soft. I really enjoyed sharing the night sky with you." "The pleasure was all mine, Lyra," he responded, his gaze lingering on hers. "More than you know." He felt a pull, a desire to reach out, to touch her hand, but he held back. It was too soon, too much. He simply offered her a warm smile. "I'll see you later today then, for the sun." "Yes," she said, her smile mirroring his, radiating a quiet happiness. "Around midday, when the sun is high." Reese nodded, then turned and began the walk down the winding path, his steps lighter than they had been in months. The world seemed brighter, more vivid. The mountains, the trees, the crisp air, all felt imbued with a new sense of possibility. He spent the next few hours booking another night at the lodge, taking a long, hot shower, and trying to catch a few hours of sleep, though his mind was still buzzing with images of distant galaxies and Lyra's captivating smile. He returned to the observatory a little before noon, feeling refreshed and eager. Lyra met him at the dome entrance, dressed in jeans and a sturdy flannel shirt, her hair still in a loose bun, a few tendrils escaping around her face. She looked effortlessly beautiful. "Welcome back," she greeted him, her eyes sparkling. "Ready for some daytime astronomy?" "Absolutely," Reese replied, his heart doing a little flutter kick in his chest. She led him to a different section of the observatory, where a long, narrow tube pointed skyward. "This is our dedicated solar telescope," she explained, her voice gaining a professional but still enthusiastic tone. "It uses special filters to safely view the sun. You'll be looking at hydrogen alpha light, which reveals the chromosphere, the sun's lower atmosphere." Reese peered through the eyepiece, and a gasp escaped him. The sun wasn't a flat yellow disk. It was a dynamic, fiery orange sphere, alive with intricate details. Dark sunspots, like cosmic blemishes, dotted its surface, some surrounded by brighter, swirling patterns. But what truly captivated him were the prominences, vast, looping arcs of plasma erupting from the sun's edge, reaching hundreds of thousands of miles into space, like fiery sculptures. "They're like enormous, constantly changing rainbows of fire," he marveled, pulling away from the eyepiece. "I never imagined it would look like this. It's alive." "It is," Lyra agreed, her own face alight with shared wonder. "Our star, the source of all life on Earth, and every day it puts on a show." She adjusted a dial, bringing a new section of the sun into view. "Those prominences are fascinating. They're essentially giant loops of magnetic field lines trapping and guiding hot plasma." They spent a long time at the solar telescope, Lyra patiently explaining the science behind what they were seeing, Reese absorbing every detail, his mind already spinning with architectural possibilities. He imagined buildings that mimicked the elegant curves of prominences, structures that incorporated the dynamic energy of sunspots, spaces that celebrated light in its purest, most powerful form. Later, they moved to a small enclosed office area within the dome, filled with computers and more books. Lyra showed him some of the data she was analyzing, images of distant galaxies captured by the larger telescopes. She explained the process of spectrography, how scientists can determine the composition and movement of stars based on their light. Reis, with his keen eye for patterns and systems, found himself surprisingly engrossed. "It's like you're deciphering the universe's own language," he commented, watching her manipulate data on the screen. "Exactly," she said, her smile warm. "Every wavelength, every spectral line tells a story. It's detective work on a cosmic scale." As the afternoon wore on, they took a break, Lyra offering him leftover homemade sourdough bread and cheese. They sat by a large window overlooking the expansive mountain landscape, bathed in the golden glow of the afternoon sun. "You know," Reese began, breaking a comfortable silence, "I've spent my entire career building things, tangible solid structures. But what you do here, you're building understanding. You're illuminating the unseen. Lyra looked out at the view, her expression thoughtful. I suppose we're both trying to bring order and beauty to the world, just in different ways. You with bricks and mortar, me with light and data? She turned to him, her gaze direct. Do you miss it? The city, your projects? He considered the question. Sometimes the energy, the collaboration. But lately, I've felt a disconnect. Like I'm part of a machine that's forgotten its purpose. Coming here, it's been a reset. A reminder of what truly inspires me. The sheer scale of existence. He paused, then added, and good company doesn't hurt. Lyra's cheeks flushed again, and she quickly looked away, picking at a loose thread on her shirt. It's been nice having company, she admitted, her voice a little softer. It can get a bit quiet up here. The stars are wonderful listeners, but they don't tend to offer much in the way of conversation. Rhys chuckled. I can imagine, though I suspect you have many fascinating conversations with yourself. More than I'd care to admit, she laughed, finally meeting his eyes again. The shared laughter felt good, light, and genuine. They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the observatory grounds. Lyra showed him the smaller domes housing different types of telescopes, the meteorological station, and the living quarters for visiting researchers, currently empty. She spoke passionately about the history of the observatory, the challenges of maintaining such a facility in a remote location, and her dreams for future research projects. Rhys listened intently, occasionally asking insightful questions that demonstrated his deep curiosity and respect for her work. He found himself drawn to her quiet strength, her intellectual passion, and the underlying warmth that peeked through her scientific reserve. She wasn't just a brilliant scientist, she was a woman of depth and quiet grace, someone who found profound beauty in the universe and was generous in sharing it. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery hues that mirrored the solar prominences they had observed earlier, they found themselves back at the main dome. The air grew cooler, carrying the promise of another star-filled night. What's on the celestial menu for tonight? Rhys asked, his voice full of anticipation. Lyra looked up at the darkening sky, her green eyes reflecting the first emerging stars. Well, the Andromeda Galaxy is well placed tonight. It's our closest galactic neighbor, on a collision course with the Milky Way in a few billion years, a little cosmic drama. She smiled. Or perhaps we could revisit some of the nebulae. The Orion Nebula is always spectacular, a stellar nursery where new stars are being born. Rhys felt a thrill. Both sound incredible. I'm in your capable hands, Lyra. Their gazes met, holding for a beat longer than strictly necessary. The unspoken understanding between them, a delicate thread woven through shared wonder and deepening connection, grew stronger with each passing moment. Rhys knew with an absolute certainty that he wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Not while there were still so many stars to see, and so many layers of Lyra to discover. His journey had indeed only just begun, and the universe in its infinite wisdom seemed to be guiding him right where he needed to be. He felt a quiet hum of excitement, a delicious anticipation for the mysteries the night, and perhaps the coming days would reveal. Lyra, sensing his shift in mood, a subtle softening in his posture, smiled. The stars are particularly generous tonight, aren't they? She murmured, her voice a soft melody against the rustle of the leaves. Rhys turned his head, letting his gaze drift from the infinite expanse above to the infinitely captivating woman beside him. The starlight caught in her hair, turning strands of it to spun silver, and illuminated the gentle curve of her cheek. He noticed the way her lips naturally tilted upwards, even when she was quiet, and the thoughtful depth in her eyes. More than generous, he agreed, his voice a little rougher than he intended. He cleared his throat. It's humbling and beautiful. A comfortable silence settled between them again, but this time, it was different. It was charged with unspoken understanding, a growing awareness of each other's presence. Rhys found himself wanting to reach out, to trace the line of her arm, to feel the warmth of her skin. He resisted, not wanting to break the delicate spell. Lyra shifted slightly, drawing her knees up and resting her chin on them, still looking up at the sky. You know, she began, her voice soft, my grandmother used to tell me that every star is a promise of something new, something beautiful, waiting to be discovered. And have you discovered many of them? Reese asked, genuinely curious. He imagined her growing up on this island, under these same skies, her life imbued with such simple, profound wisdom. She chuckled softly. Oh, a few. This island, it's full of small wonders if you know where to look. A rare orchid blooming in a hidden cove, the specific way the light hits the water at dawn, the taste of a mango picked fresh from the tree. They're all promises kept. She turned her head then, her eyes meeting his directly, holding his gaze. What about you, Reese? What promises are you seeking? The question hung in the air, gentle yet probing. Reese, the architect, the man who built structures and planned futures with meticulous detail, found himself at a loss. He had come to the island seeking solitude, a respite from the relentless demands of his urban life, a space to heal from a recent professional setback that had shaken his confidence. He'd sought emptiness, a blank canvas to recalibrate. He certainly hadn't been seeking a promise, let alone a connection like this. I hadn't thought of it that way, he admitted, feeling a rare vulnerability creep in. I suppose I was looking for a break, a quiet corner to catch my breath. He paused, considering. Perhaps, to rediscover inspiration. My work can be demanding, and sometimes the sheer volume of it can obscure the joy. The joy of creation? Lara prompted, her eyes warm and understanding. He nodded. Precisely. To build something that truly resonates, that brings beauty and functionality together. That's the dream. But lately, it's felt more like a relentless machine. And the island? She asked. Is it helping? Reese looked out at the moonlit expanse of the ocean, then back to Lyra. More than I ever imagined, he said, the words coming from a place deeper than mere politeness. This conversation alone, it's like a breath of fresh air. Her smile widened, a genuine radiant thing that sent a surprising warmth through Reese. I'm glad, she said simply. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, you know, sometimes to find inspiration, you just need to look at things from a different angle, or with different eyes. Her gaze lingered on his. The unspoken implication hung between them, delicate as a spider's silk. He felt a strong pull, an undeniable magnetism that defied logic or his usual cautious nature. His hand, as if with a will of its own, reached out, hovering for a moment before gently settling over hers, which rested on the blanket between them. Her skin was soft, surprisingly cool against his. He felt a jolt, a current of energy passing between them. Lyra didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers instinctively curled, intertwining with his. Her thumb brushed lightly over his knuckles, a small, comforting gesture that resonated deep within him. The world seemed to shrink to this moment, this touch, this shared gaze under a canopy of a million promises. Reese leaned in, drawn by an irresistible force, by the quiet intensity in her eyes, by the subtle scent of jasmine and salt that clung to her. He watched her eyes flutter closed as he drew nearer, her breath catching softly. His lips met hers, tentative at first, a soft inquiry, a whisper of a question. Her response was immediate, a gentle yielding, a subtle pressure that deepened the kiss. It was soft, sweet, tasting of starlight and ocean breeze, a revelation of tenderness and burgeoning desire. There was no rush, no urgency, just a profound connection blossoming between them, a silent conversation of hearts. When they finally broke apart, it was only by an inch, their foreheads resting against each other, their breaths mingling. Wow, Reese breathed, the single word laden with a lifetime of unspoken wonder. Lyra's eyes, when they opened, were sparkling, reflecting the celestial tapestry above. Wow, indeed, she echoed, her voice a husky whisper that sent shivers down his spine. She pulled back slightly, but their hands remained clasped, a silent anchor. A faint blush dusted her cheeks, making her even more beautiful. It's getting late, she observed, though neither of them seemed ready to move. Reese glanced at his watch, surprised to see how much time had passed. The moon was higher now, casting a silvery sheen over the landscape. It is, he agreed, a pang of reluctance already setting in. I suppose I should head back to my villa. The thought of returning to his empty rental, after this incandescent evening, felt bleak. Lyra hesitated. You don't have to, you know, she said, her gaze dropping to their joined hands. I have a guest room. It's simple, but comfortable, and there's a lovely sunrise view from the balcony. His heart gave a hopeful lurch. The offer was unexpected, incredibly kind, and exactly what he secretly longed for. To prolong this connection, even for a few more hours, was a gift. "Are you sure?" he asked, not wanting to impose but desperate to accept. She met his gaze, her smile gentle. "I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. Besides," she added, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes, "you still haven't seen my stargazing journal, and it's much easier to explain the constellations with a proper cup of tea." Reese laughed, a genuine, full-throated sound that felt liberating. "Tea and constellation sounds perfect," he said, squeezing her hand. "Thank you, Lyra." They gathered their things, the picnic blanket, the half-eaten fruit, their movements unhurried, imbued with a new intimacy. As they walked back towards her cottage, the path illuminated by the moon and the soft glow of a solar-powered lantern Lyra carried, Reese felt a profound sense of rightness. The air was cooler now, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the distant murmur of the waves. He found himself walking closer to her, their shoulders occasionally brushing, a silent promise of proximity. Lyra's cottage was exactly as he'd imagined, small, charming, and radiating a warmth that felt like a hug. Inside it was filled with books, dried herbs hanging from the rafters, and an array of botanical prints and pressed flowers. A large, well-loved telescope stood proudly in one corner, and a collection of smooth, sea-worn stones adorned a windowsill. It was a space that spoke volumes about its occupant, a life lived in harmony with nature, rich in curiosity and quiet beauty. "Make yourself at home," she said, gesturing to a comfortable-looking armchair laden with cushions. "I'll put the kettle on." Reese watched her move about the compact kitchen, her movements graceful and efficient. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't just a physical place, it was a sanctuary for his soul. Over mugs of fragrant herbal tea, Lyra did indeed pull out her stargazing journal. It was a beautiful, leather-bound book, its pages filled with meticulous sketches of constellations, detailed notes on celestial events, and lyrical prose describing her observations and reflections. Reese was captivated not just by the scientific accuracy but by the sheer artistry and passion, evident on every page. He saw a depth in her that he was only just beginning to uncover. "This is incredible, Lyra," he said, tracing a finger over a delicate drawing of the Orion Nebula. "You're truly gifted." She blushed, a shy smile gracing her lips. "It's just a hobby, a way to connect with the universe." "It's more than a hobby," Reese insisted gently. "It's a way of seeing, a way of understanding. You translate the vastness into something intimate and beautiful." He paused, a thought forming. "You know, in my work as an architect, I try to do something similar, to take raw materials and abstract ideas and shape them into spaces that inspire." Lyra's eyes lit up. "Yes, exactly. It's about finding the soul of a place, isn't it? And then giving it form." They talked for hours, the tea growing cold in their mugs, sharing stories about their passions, their dreams, their pasts. Reese found himself opening up to her in a way he hadn't to anyone in a long time, sharing the pressures of his demanding career, the loneliness that sometimes accompanied his success, even the sting of the recent project that had gone awry, causing him to doubt his own vision. Lyra listened with an unwavering attentiveness, her gaze steady and compassionate, offering understanding rather than platitudes. As dawn approached, painting the sky with soft hues of rose and gold, Lyra showed him to the guest room. It was small but cozy, with a single bed draped in a patchwork quilt and a window overlooking a lush garden. "The bathroom is just across the hall," she said. "Fresh towels are on the rack. Sleep well, Reese." "Thank you, Lyra," he said, his voice thick with gratitude. He found himself wanting to pull her close again, but he sensed the delicate boundary she'd drawn, a quiet respect for their burgeoning connection. He settled for a gentle squeeze of her hand. "Truly, this has been the most wonderful night." Her smile was soft, warm. "Good night, Reese." Reese slept deeply, the kind of restful sleep that only comes after a profound emotional experience. He awoke to the sound of birdsong and the gentle murmur of waves, feeling refreshed and invigorated. He padded across the hall and discovered a small, beautifully tiled bathroom. After a quick shower, he found Lyra already in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and something sweet filled the air. "Good morning," she greeted, turning with a warm smile. She wore a simple linen dress, her hair pulled back in a loose braid. "Sleep well?" "Like a dream," he confirmed, leaning against the doorframe, watching her. And the sunrise view was indeed spectacular. "You weren't wrong." She gestured to the small, round table set for two on the porch. "Come, coffee's ready. I made some banana bread." They ate breakfast in comfortable silence, watching the sun climb higher, painting the ocean in dazzling shades of blue. The banana bread was delicious, moist, and sweet, and the coffee was strong and fragrant. Rhys felt a profound sense of contentment, a feeling he hadn't realized he'd been missing for so long. "I should probably head back to my villa later today," Rhys said, breaking the silence, though the words felt like a betrayal of his own desires. "I have some things there, and I need to check in with work." He dreaded the thought. Lyra nodded slowly. "Of course. Though, you're welcome to stay longer if you like. The island has a way of convincing people to linger." Rhys looked at her, his heart swelling. "I'd like that very much, Lyra. More than you know." He decided then, in that moment, that his planned 2-week retreat would be extended indefinitely. His work could wait. His soul, he realized, couldn't. "I'll go back, get my things, maybe check out of the villa, and see if I can find something more permanent. Or perhaps," he ventured, a hopeful note in his voice, "you know of a long-term rental nearby." Lyra's eyes twinkled. "I might," she said, a hint of amusement in her tone. "There's a small cottage just down the path, belonging to my uncle. He's away for the season, visiting family on the mainland. It's usually empty." "Perfect," Rhys said, a broad smile spreading across his face. "Absolutely perfect." The next few days unfolded like a dream. Rhys moved into Lyra's uncle's cottage, a rustic but charming little place with a porch overlooking the sea. He found it was just enough space, close enough to Lyra, but still offering him the quiet solitude he sometimes craved. His laptop remained mostly closed, his phone mostly ignored. Instead, his days were filled with a different kind of architecture, the architecture of connection. He walked with Lyra through winding jungle paths, learning the names of exotic plants and the calls of unseen birds. He watched her collect herbs for her botanical creations, her hands moving with a delicate precision that spoke of deep respect for nature. He helped her tend her small garden, digging in the rich earth, feeling the sun on his skin, a stark contrast to the air-conditioned offices and concrete jungles he was used to. They swam in secluded coves, the water warm and clear, sunlight dappling through the surface. They shared meals, cooked together in Lyra's cozy kitchen, filled with laughter and easy conversation. Rhys found himself sketching again, not blueprints for skyscrapers, but the graceful lines of the island's unique flora, the intricate patterns of sunlight filtering through palm leaves, and often, Lyra herself, lost in thought. One afternoon, as they sat on her porch watching a gentle rain shower bring the island to life, Rhys showed her his latest sketches. They were vibrant, alive, a departure from the precise, almost sterile lines of his usual work. "These are beautiful, Rhys," Lyra said, her voice soft with admiration, tracing a finger over a sketch of a bird of paradise flower. "They have so much life in them." "You inspired them," he admitted, looking at her, his heart open. "This island, you've shown me a different kind of beauty, a different way of seeing. It's like my vision has been recalibrated." He told her about the difficult project that had brought him here, how he'd lost faith in his own ability to create something meaningful. "I felt drained, empty, like I'd lost my touch. But here with you, I feel it returning, the joy, the purpose." Lyra reached out, her hand finding his, her fingers intertwining. "You never lost it, Rhys. You just needed a different kind of canvas. Sometimes the most beautiful structures aren't made of steel and glass, but of moments, of shared laughter, of quiet understanding." Their days continued, a tapestry woven with shared experiences and deepening affection. Yet, a quiet awareness began to settle over them, a gentle current beneath the surface of their happiness. Rhys's life, his career, his commitments in the city, still existed. And Lyra, for all her openness, had a deep-rooted life on this island, a history, a community. One evening, after a particularly magical sunset, spent watching dolphins leap in the distance, they were sitting on the beach, the waves whispering secrets to the shore. "My assistant called today," Reese said, breaking the comfortable silence. "A client is asking for an update on a potential project. They want me back in the city for a meeting." Lyra's hand, which had been resting casually on his arm, tensed almost imperceptibly. "And when is that?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Next week," he replied, already feeling a familiar knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. The thought of leaving, even for a short trip, felt like tearing a part of himself away. "I could probably push it back, but your life is there," Lyra finished for him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Your work, your future." He turned to her, taking her hands in his. "Lyra, my future feels like it's here, with you. I came here seeking a break, and I found so much more. I found you." He looked into her eyes, pleading with his own. "I don't want to leave. Not now, not ever if I can help it." A sigh escaped her lips, soft and wistful. "Reese, I feel it too. This connection, it's unlike anything I've ever known. It feels ancient and new all at once, but I also know that life on an island, it's not for everyone. It's slow, it's quiet, and you're a builder of towering structures, a man of the city. And you're a woman of the earth, a guardian of natural beauty," he countered gently. "But does that mean our worlds can't intertwine? Can't we find a way to build a bridge between them?" He thought of his architecture, how he often sought to integrate natural elements into urban designs, to bring green spaces into concrete jungles. He could do the same for his life. "It's a big bridge, Reese," she said, a hint of sadness in her voice. "And I don't know if I'm ready for the upheaval. This island, it's my home. It's where my roots are. I've seen others come and go, enchanted by the magic, only to find it doesn't quite fit their old lives." He understood her fear. He knew the allure of the island was potent, but also that sustained happiness required more than just enchantment. It required dedication, compromise, and a willingness to build a life together. "I know it's a big bridge, Lyra," he conceded, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "But I'm willing to build it. I'm willing to learn. I can work remotely for much of my job. And I've been thinking, perhaps I could even start a new branch of my firm here, focusing on sustainable island-appropriate design, helping to preserve the very beauty that drew me here." Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope replacing the sadness. "You're serious?" "Never been more serious," he affirmed. "My work has always been about creating spaces that enhance life. And what better place to do that than here, to build a life with you in a place that feels so utterly right." He paused, gathering his courage. "Lyra, I love you. I know it's fast, but I feel it with every fiber of my being. And I want to build a future with you, whatever that looks like, wherever that takes us, as long as we're together." Her breath hitched. She looked at him, her beautiful eyes searching his, seeking the truth in his words. And she found it there, unwavering and profound. A tear, bright as a star, tracked a path down her cheek. "I love you too, Reese," she whispered, the words a gentle exhale of emotion. "Oh, I love you too." She leaned into him, her arms wrapping around his neck, holding him close. He held her just as tightly, burying his face in her fragrant hair, feeling the fierce protective love that had blossomed so unexpectedly within him. The fear, the uncertainty, the complexities of their different lives. They didn't disappear, but in that moment, enveloped in each other's embrace, they felt manageable. They felt like challenges they could face together. Reese did fly back to the city for his meeting, but it wasn't the same. The bustling streets, the towering buildings, the relentless pace, they all felt alien, distant. He conducted his business efficiently, professionally, but his heart remained on the island, with Lyra. He explained to his partners his desire to shift his focus, to explore sustainable architecture, to open a small satellite office in a place that truly inspired him. To his surprise, they were intrigued, seeing the potential for a new exciting direction for the firm. He returned to the island a week later, not just with his luggage, but with a renewed sense of purpose and a clear vision for his future. Lyra was waiting for him at the tiny airstrip, her smile brighter than the midday sun. As he stepped off the plane, he felt like he was truly coming home. Their life together began to take shape, a beautiful blend of their two worlds. Rhys divided his time, splitting between remote work for his firm and his new passion project, designing and building sustainable, eco-friendly structures on the island. He collaborated with local artisans, learned from Lyra's deep understanding of the environment, and poured his heart into creating spaces that harmonized with the island's natural beauty. Lyra continued her botanical work, now with Rhys often by her side, helping her cultivate her garden, sketching new species, and sometimes simply sitting quietly, absorbing the peace of her world. Their evenings were still spent under the stars, but now, instead of just observing them, they talked about their day, their dreams, and the exciting future they were building together. They learned to navigate the gentle challenges of their differences. Rhys, with his planner's mind, learning to embrace the island's slower, more spontaneous rhythm. Lyra, with her quiet independence, learning to lean on Rhys's strength and unwavering support. They found joy in the small things: a shared meal under the mango tree, the discovery of a new bird species, the comfortable silence of two souls deeply connected. Years passed. Rhys's firm, with its new sustainable branch, flourished. His designs became renowned for their sensitivity to the environment and their ability to blend seamlessly with nature. He had found his true calling, not just in building structures, but in building a life that truly resonated with his values. Lyra expanded her botanical work, creating a small, thriving business selling her natural dyes and botanical art to visitors and online. Her stargazing journal now contained entries not just about the cosmos, but about the beautiful life she was living, the love that illuminated her days, and the man who had shown her that even the most ingrained roots could find new ground to flourish. One clear, starlit night, many years after Rhys had first stumbled upon her hidden cove, they sat on the porch of their own home. A beautiful, sustainably designed cottage that Rhys had built with his own hands, integrating Lyra's love for nature into every detail. The same stars that had witnessed their first meeting now shimmered above them, ancient and eternal. Rhys wrapped his arm around Lyra, pulling her closer. Her head rested on his shoulder, her hand intertwined with his. "Remember that night?" he murmured, his voice soft with contentment. "When you told me every star was a promise?" Lyra smiled, her gaze fixed on the endless expanse. "I do. And look at all the promises that have been kept." "More than I ever dreamed of," Rhys agreed, pressing a kiss to her hair. "I came here seeking a quiet corner, a blank canvas. I found a universe, and the brightest star in it." Lyra chuckled, a sound like wind chimes. "And I thought I knew all the constellations. You, Rhys, you were a brand new one, a constellation of kindness, strength, and boundless love." He squeezed her hand. The night air was warm, fragrant with the scent of night-blooming jasmine from their garden. The sound of the waves, a constant, comforting lullaby, filled the air. They sat there for a long time, simply existing in the quiet perfection of their shared life, their hearts full, their connection deeper and more vibrant than the deepest ocean. Their journey had indeed only just begun that starlit night, and the universe, in its infinite wisdom, had guided them right where they needed to be, together, under the watchful, benevolent gaze of a million promises kept. And as the stars twinkled, like tiny, knowing eyes, they settled into the peaceful rhythm of their love, ready for all the beautiful mysteries the coming days, and all the nights to follow, would reveal.